Hey friends, welcome to my channel, Life with Everyday Haley. Super happy that you're here with me today. I am in my baby nursery today. It's a bittersweet room. It's a room filled with excitement, but also fear of the future, especially if you have gone through infant or pregnancy loss, as I recently went through this year. But this video's purpose is to bring light, love, and to give you a little bit of information and hopefully things that can help you cope as you navigate through your grief journey after losing a pregnancy. So you can go to my channel and view previous videos about my experience, my health journey, trying to get pregnant, my recent miscarriage, early chemical pregnancy loss, and the next steps that I took as I move forward in my trying to get pregnant journey. So today I am here to share with you about the cycle of grief, what I have gone through, how I have processed my feelings, the struggles that come and go. It's definitely not a quick process to get over something like that. Actually, if you are just desperately wanting a child for your family and a baby to call your own, I'm just going to share with you the cycle of grief, what I've been working through personally, what I have been working through with my therapist, and just trying to heal on this journey while still being hopeful and excited for the future. Let me start off by saying trigger warning for those of you who have had a pregnancy loss. For those of you that this topic you may not be ready to watch, maybe save this video for later when you feel ready to address and process these feelings. Some of the things I share with you may be a little triggering for you. So I just want to start by saying you can watch previous videos of mine to hear what happened to me, but during my second cycle of trying to conceive, so very early on, a lot of emotions already, wondering, curiosity in that. We have been tracking ovulation as I've shared, and I do ovulate regularly and have regular cycles. I'd come off of the pill, and so I was still dealing with some hormonal changes from that. Our second cycle of TTC had some very weird symptoms and very intense cramping. Tested positive, but did have a cycle and then had a lot of miscarriage bleeding. I ended up having a chemical pregnancy at the end of my 5th week of pregnancy. I can tell that things were not developing correctly. Looking back, it makes a lot more sense now that the education that I've gained and learned. So I would encourage you, if you're going through something like that, or you're wanting to learn more about what a chemical pregnancy is, because I had no idea before this happened to me. It's basically just an early miscarriage, but I would encourage you to view that video of mine just to learn about my experience and what I went through. And I just posted that recently because I didn't feel even ready to share. About 3 months since that happened, and I'm okay. But let's talk about the cycle of grief today. So here is the cycle of grief. This is a document that I created myself. I looked up some resources online and just printed this out to help me today explain this to you. The cycle of grief is something that I have been through in the past with different types of losses in life, mainly the loss of family members that have passed on. And depending on the type of tragedy you experienced, it could be a death of a loved one, a divorce, a loss of a pregnancy, all kinds of various things. Natural disasters that you've experienced, war, who knows, all kinds of things. Depending on how close that was to you or how much that affected you, your cycle of grief may look very different. And I realized when I was going through my early pregnancy loss, some of the feelings that I had that I was trying to process were very similar to the grief journey that I've had with loved ones that have passed on, that I have really struggled with their passing. And that can be a little discouraging and alarming when you start feeling those same emotions and symptoms. But it can also remind you that, okay, in the past, I have gone through grief through X, Y, and Z situations. And over time, I was able to heal and go through my grief journey cycle. And yes, it may still be something you actively work through years later, but you did come out on the other side and you did improve. Your emotional state got better. And so it's kind of an encouragement to me in my mind just to remember you will get better. This is something that you will process. It feels like a giant cloud, a dark cloud is over you, but with time you will come through it. Something else I have done is significantly work through my grief cycle. Or grief journey through therapy, talk therapy. And so I would say that if you have a significant loss of a pregnancy or anything else in your life, definitely talking to a therapist can help you through that grief journey. I also talked to my therapist about my grief with my pregnancy loss. I have had her as a great foundation, resource, friend, support for me, and talking it out with her has been very significant. So let's walk through the grief cycle and what I experienced briefly through these phases. So first, let me call out that the grief cycle, it does have arrows that go around almost like, a circle. However, I almost want to put and edit this to put arrows on both sides of this cycle. And here's why. Because I've noticed in my grief journeys in life that just because I'm at one phase doesn't mean I automatically go to the next phase. It could be that I go backwards, I jump forwards. It depends on the day, what I'm feeling, depends on the month, depends on the moment. And so I know it's a cycle, but for me, I feel like the arrows should go both ways because literally you can go backwards and forwards, and that's okay. And I have experienced that with my early pregnancy loss. In the beginning, so the first step is shock and denial. So for me, I didn't know that I was pregnant. I had been just starting to TTC and been having a lot of symptoms coming off of the pill. I was also not having normal early pregnancy symptoms because I believe that my baby was not developing the way it should. And I think that's why my early pregnancy was lost at the end of 5 weeks. So for me, I really didn't have many symptoms. I had extreme cramping, which I thought was associated with my period. I actually got my cycle that month. And so everything was just really strange. And so when I did find out I was pregnant, I was basically miscarrying at the same time. And because of that, there was a lot of shock. There was a lot of, wow, I didn't even know I was pregnant. What is going on? A lot of confusion. And it took a few days and some blood work to figure that out. And yeah, for the first week or so, I think I was just in shock. The first week or two, I was experiencing the feelings of grief that come with like the world is standing still, like my world is stopped and everybody else's world is still going. Common feeling when you've lost a loved one, when someone's died. But it's like my life just paused and everybody's happy and fine around me. That's how I felt. I also found it really difficult in the like down moments, the moments when things were quiet, the moments when I didn't have stuff to do. And I really tried to keep myself busy with crafting, which I love to do, or decorating, things like that that make me happy. I tried to hang out with friends. I also tried to obviously work through the physical symptoms there. It's not an easy experience when you're dealing with bleeding, you're dealing with your body's going through the trauma of the pregnancy loss. So you actually have to get through that before you can really start any type of emotional healing, I believe. I will say that I didn't feel even ready to begin to heal until the miscarriage concluded, because you're like actively in it, you're bleeding, you're having the symptoms, and it's like, I just remember feeling like if I can just stop bleeding, like maybe I can just move on, How do we move forward? So the next phase is pain and guilt. Deep. And I actually feel like I still feel this phase quite often. I feel like I'm not in shock anymore. I've accepted what happened. But even 3 months later, the pain and the guilt. For pain, it's like, it's so painful for me that's actually the emotion that I would qualify this as. It's extremely painful for me and has been to just accept that I had a child and the dream of that child that I will never get to meet, and that something went wrong, and just not knowing why it went wrong. The pain of seeing several people around me announce pregnancies and me have to basically feel like I'm dying inside. I hate to say that. I'm a very supportive person of friends and family, but it's like when people would say I'm pregnant, and there was several that happened over the course of my grief journey until present state. It just made me feel like, why not me? It's just painful. It's like an open wound. My therapist and I talked about it as an open wound. And every time someone talks about being pregnant or announces that, it just puts basically like salt in your open wound and just keeps opening it. And there for guilt, I don't really feel guilty about what happened. But you do feel, I remember feeling, especially early phases of this, like, what did I do wrong? Or what did my body do wrong? And basically feeling like my body wasn't good enough to make this work. That's something that women have to struggle through, I think, and just kind of work through. And I think honestly, until they have a successful pregnancy, they might have to sit with those feelings for a while. That kind of can turn into anxiety and just anxiousness as you continue your trying to conceive journey, which I'll get into in a minute. But that's kind of the ripple effects of that are what went wrong, always wondering, having those pondering questions, and then as a future focus, like as I continue to try to get pregnant, is this going to happen to me again aspect. The next step is anger and bargaining. And as you see, I didn't call this out before, but I basically highlighted each step with colors. So for me, each step, the colors that I chose kind of identify with the emotions that I felt in each of these phases. So for the first one, shock and denial, it's a light blue color. That's like a ice cold chilly color. So to me, it's like, ooh, you're in shock. You're kind of like, what happened to me? The pain and guilt is red because it's pain. It's painful, it's not good, and it hurts. The next step we're going to talk about is anger and bargaining, and that is orange. Something's angry. And so for anger and bargaining, I definitely was here up until pretty recently. The anger kind of came from me. I'll share this with y'all as well. The first month after I was able to try to get pregnant again, when I did not get pregnant, it really just sunk my heart, and I just felt very angry at God. I am a believer of faith, and I never really get angry with God, but I was angry with God in that moment, and I actually threw something across the room. Something triggered me. I think a pregnancy announcement. And I just said, God, why? Why are you doing this to me? I said, why is this happening for everybody else and not me? And, you do get into that anger and bargaining phase. Like, why did this happen to me? And I am not a person that's usually angry. So I shared that with my therapist. For me, that anger and bargaining phase, it's something that I think was triggered by that first month of trying to get pregnant afterwards and not being successful. And I think, the ripple effects of when you have a miscarriage, which even if it's early, people don't realize this, but it's not a quick thing. Like, I had to wait a month to get another cycle before I could try again. And then my period actually was a little bit delayed. I didn't get it for 6 weeks. And so I had to wait a significant amount of time, almost 2 months, to even be able to try again. And that's a really long time when you're struggling with your grief journey phase. Okay, our next phase is depression, and that is black. It really makes sense as to why you fall into depression, because you have the shock, you have the pain, you have the anger, and then you have the depression. Just because things are not getting better. This could be if you're, like I just shared with y'all, if you're trying and it's not working and you're just having to wait and you wonder why, you have to be careful. You can really fall into a state of depression. And I think a lot of women probably identify with this when they're trying to get pregnant, when things aren't working out and they have so many questions and they see it happening for other people. And I mean, of all the things I've been through in my life, this is one of the most difficult battles I have ever been through. This is probably the worst emotional battle I've ever been through, just the trying to conceive journey. And when I lost my early pregnancy, yes, it was early. Yes, I didn't even know I was pregnant, but it's not so much, I know I was recently pregnant. It's the idea of what I hope for, and feeling like that hope was taken away, and feeling like, my hopes and dreams are no longer there. And so as a woman, that's your first loss. I feel for the women that have had their first loss, because it was really hard. And it does feel in the moment like nobody understands. But there's a whole world of women out there that have lost pregnancies, early pregnancies, or further along pregnancies, or infants. And it's extremely common. And I mean, 1 in 4 end in miscarriage. So it makes you feel very isolated and depressed. I would even put isolation there. and you feel like you can't really talk to anybody about it that understands. Some people even like don't tell their family or don't tell their friends. And so they're just dealing with it in private with their spouse. Will say I did tell my family and some close friends. And so looking back, I'm really glad that I told my family. They were a huge support to me through my physical and emotional recovery. They've prayed for me significantly since this happened, and having their support has meant a lot. I will say that if I could go back, I probably wouldn't share it with anyone other than my family. I had only shared it with a few friends. But you have to be careful when you share sensitive information with people. They don't always respond in the ways that you need them to. And like I shared it with one person that ended up announcing they were pregnant. And I just regretted sharing it with them because I felt like it was very insensitive how they shared that with me, that they were pregnant, knowing what I had been through. But again, unless you've gone through this, it's really difficult to even acknowledge what emotions you go through. And also, I never realized how much pain would be from an early pregnancy loss until I went through it. And it's really because when you truly want a baby and you lose a baby, it's a big deal. All right, next phase, and this one is yellow. This is the upward turn. And I made this yellow because I thought, okay, things are starting to look up, like the light is coming through the darkness. The light always comes after the darkness. So this is the upward turn. This is when you start to kind of pull out of that depression, go toward the light, LOL, as you would say, and you just start like looking, having hope again and looking for the future. This is how things are, and I'm going to accept that, and I'm going to move forward and be hopeful. This one is kind of where I'm at right now. It's hard to be happy and it's hard to feel hope when things look dark. That's just a I kind of linger and I still go backwards to some of these other areas at different moments, but I do feel hopeful for the future. I do know that God has a plan, and I do know that my chances of getting pregnant again are high because I've gotten pregnant in the past, and you just have to keep trying and hope for the best. So that is kind of a difficult place to even talk about because it's hard to see the light when you've gone through such a loss. But just remembering that you got pregnant once, hopefully you can get pregnant again, more than likely, and your chances of having a viable pregnancy after a loss are pretty high. Next phase would be reconstruction and working through it. Again, I kind of feel like I'm here as well a lot of the time. I feel like this could be, again, just accepting, hey, I had a loss. It's been like accepting that, okay, my life goes on. I still have amazing blessings around me. You know, this is one portion of my life that I am struggling through, but I have many different areas that I love and great things going on for me. And just trying to learn to be patient and just accepting reality for what it is. And there's a lot of power in that if you can get to that level, to that point, and actually accomplish that. And again, I think going to therapy, talking this out, has really helped with that portion of my grief cycle. The next one is acceptance and hope, and I put that in bright green. And again, I am all over here, and then sometimes I'm all over here, but I like to say I'm more over here today. Acceptance and hope would be, you know, hey, having a positive outlook, you know, being able to go through life and say, I had my loss, but I'm going to be okay. You know, I had my loss. I'm going to get pregnant again. God has a plan in his timing. I'm going to be patient, and it's all going to be okay. That is, I don't believe, I don't know if I'm there yet. I'm not going to lie to y'all because I don't feel good about what happened to me. I still think about that baby and what I lost, and the thought that I'll never meet that baby. But in this phase, you look toward the future with a positive outlook and you're excited for the future. I feel like for women that have lost a pregnancy, this could be getting pregnant again, having a rainbow baby. I hate to say it, but that's why you hear about rainbow babies on social media a lot. It's a rainbow. It's a sign of God's promise. It's a, you know, a sign of, hey, We went through a storm. We went through a very hard time, but there's a rainbow at the end of this storm and the sun is shining. And that's kind of how I feel about it. And even if you don't get pregnant right away or in the next few months, hopefully in your life plan, you can find a way to be a parent, whether that's through, reproductive technologies or adoption. And you can find your hope, you can find your acceptance as you move forward with wanting to be a parent, and have hope in those things. Something that my therapist and I talked about was, and that's kind of helpful for people, because for me, especially down here in the depression phase, I remember just saying, well, I don't see my life not being a parent. Like, like, that's not what I want. Like, I don't see my marriage without being a parent. Like, that's never what I wanted. And I just kept thinking, like, if I can't get pregnant again, or I can't carry a pregnancy, I can't be a parent. Like, what's the point of my life? That sounds really deep. And my husband had to tell me, like, let's put a pause on those thoughts. And my therapist as well, and think, like, there are all kinds of ways to be a parent. You can try, reproductive technologies. You could do adoption for all kinds of children that need a home. And I think in that moment of darkness, it's hard to see the light, but there are so many ways to be a parent. So anyways, that was a lot. That was just me speaking from my heart right now. And again, I am several months out of my loss. And so this is kind of a reflection of all the things I've been going through. Am I 100% healed? Absolutely not. And I may not be healed for quite some time. And it may be one of those things where this is a trauma that happened to me in my life, something that I'll never understand, something that I feel is very personal as the mother of the baby that I lost. But it's just something that I'll have to take with me, and I'll have to work out with my relationship with the Lord. I'll share as we close out is one of the hardest things, and this may be in the shock and denial phase for me through this journey, was just accepting that I am now identified as a person that has lost a pregnancy. So, like, I am now one of those women that have had a miscarriage. And I don't know why that was such a big deal for me, but it was like, I just remember feeling like I don't want to be in that group. If this makes sense and resonates with anyone, I hope it does. But I just remember feeling like I don't want to be in that group of women. I don't want to identify with this. I just wanted to have a normal, healthy, beautiful pregnancy. But obviously God had other plans for me, and that's okay. I feel like my trying to conceive journey would have been a lot easier if I had not lost a pregnancy. I feel like there, I got my hopes up. Things went very wrong, very fast, very early in my trying to conceive journey. And so it just caused a lot of emotional turmoil for me. And so now, a couple months later, and still into the trying to get pregnant journey, it's like, ooh, this is really rocky. Like, I feel like I would have been in a better place emotionally, even if I hadn't gotten pregnant and it's been 5 months, if I had not had this loss. So if you have had the early loss like me, my heart goes out to you. And it's a very hard place to be in, recovering from that and continuing to try to get pregnant. So here's the cycle of grief. I hope you have appreciated this video, not enjoyed it because it's not a happy topic, but appreciated this video of my interpretation of the cycle of grief in early pregnancy loss, chemical pregnancy, miscarriage, etc. My heart is with you if this video resonates with you, or if you know someone that is going through this that might appreciate hearing my perspective. I'd love for you to share it. That's why I'm sharing it. I looked on YouTube and didn't find much about this. This has been a big part of my recovery and acceptance journey, and just working through being okay in my present reality. But thank you for watching this video. I hope and I pray that in upcoming months, I'll have more to share with you with positivity on my journey, and hopefully pregnancy announcement. And the last thing I'll share is the one thing that helped me more than anything in this cycle has been my prayer journey with God. Any moment I felt like depressed or overwhelming emotions of sadness or uncertainty, I just turn to God in prayer, sometimes even come in the nursery if it's not too painful for me. There was a few days where it was just too painful to even look in here with my grief. Most of the time, this room actually brings me comfort, and I feel closer to my baby that I'll someday hopefully bring into this world. But my prayer journey and just opening up to God and telling him my heart's desire and how I'm feeling has been exponentially helpful for this, as well as my prayer journey with my spouse. We actively pray and ask God to bless us with a viable, healthy baby. And so I would encourage you to do so as well with your spouse if you're a person of faith. Thanks for watching this video. Would love for you to look at my channel for other videos and follow along on my journey. Hope you'll have a blessed day, and thanks for watching.